Hi, I'm Richie Mackay.
And I'm David Bold, and you are listening to the Wrongbias podcast.
And on 63, we are joined by Bowls England junior team manager Nicola Bowe. Nicola gives us the lowdown on what it's like to work with the young guns of Bowls England. We also asked Nicola about Cumbria, a county close to her heart. And as a Brucey bonus, clear your throats, cause it's Gina G time, otherwise known as two deaf lads having a laugh. Big shout out to Renton Wealth Management, Bowlswear Direct, pentlandprecast.co.uk, and welcome on board since our last podcast to ultrabowls.com and Lucy Smith at bowlsmarketing.com. Many thanks to all of them for supporting the podcast. Thanks for your support, and we hope you enjoy the show. And welcome to show 63 of the Wrongbias podcast. Well, mate, outdoor season ends and the indoor season just gets on and on and on, doesn't it? It just rolls
Straight in.
And it's been a busy few weeks as well. My God, has it not? But first of all, hold on. Need that drum roll? No, you probably cannot. Congratulations to you, Mr. Hartley. Way the Golden Girls, Blanche and Sophie, have qualified for Potters in the Bears at Carlisle. Fantastic, mate. I'm over the moon again.
Aye, thanks, mate. It was a long old day, mate.
It was. What a route you had to take as well, mate.
Do you know something? It's funny because you get so engrossed in the games. I hadn't even contemplated what the route was until the Bowls Tour posted it the next day. Yeah. And it's like you looked at that run that we had and who we had to get past. Aye. To be honest, we had a rough idea. Paul had a look at the draw and he was like, "Great, you've got to write all one here because it's just big hitter after big hitter after big hitter." There was no other wonder. I was absolutely shattered the next day. Oh man, honestly, I haven't been that tired. My legs were aching and everything, and it's
the drama of the quarter final against Darren and Derek Fergie was just. I mean, if people watch it back on the stream, that 5-minute review, and I mean, I had a camera in the middle, and I was flicking between one game and newer game, and both games were at vital points. And then we went to your game. You drew second. Your ball was at an angle, but then it hadn't fell. And Fergie, of course, with his last ball, decided I'm going to keep out the way and drop it up the wicket. And halfway up the wicket, I flicked the camera over to it, and all of a sudden the ball fell in.
Must have been the movement of the camera. Good shot.
Right. It was the wind off. Didn't say that to Fergie. He'll have us.
I know.
Must be the breeze off the gimbal.
It was just weird though, Rich, because I think you heard us actually, because about 3 ends into the second set, I think I shouted up and saying, well, at least we've avoided the double donut because we got absolutely
10 blocked
the first set.
Yeah.
Didn't score a shot. And then we were down in the second set.
7-2.
We got a 2. It was 4-0 at the time, and we got a 2. Got us back to 4-2, and I just says, well, at least we've avoided the double donut. Then it went to 7-2, and with 2 ends to play. So you're looking and you're going, we need 6 out of 2 ends against these two. Not a chance. And I was given one chance on the second last end to turn a jack 18 inches around the corner to make it 3. And at that point, my shoulders had just dropped. I've just completely relaxed. I'll be honest with you. I was going to walk over, and I think I said at the after, there's one thing for certain, my flatulence will not make a noise for the next week because he tore us a new one. And it was like, we got the 3, and then Paul played 2 good balls on the last end, and then I drew third, and he ran the ball off. And I remember just thinking, if I can get this in close, he ain't got much of a target, and we're a decent 3 here. And I drew back toucher, and he had very little. I think Paul was still in a bit of shell shock because he was so frustrated. Honestly, I mean, Paul said it himself. I've never seen Paul struggle on a rink like that for a long time. Paul's been one of the most consistent players over the last few years now, and it was just one of them days. And to then see Derek's ball come out tight and we're in the tie break, I remember patting him on the stomach, and it was like, we're in this. And then we lost the first 10 of the tie break, and it's like, well, the mindset, and we're talking about it there during the interview, the mindset's just a weird thing in the psychology, because my mindset was like, we'll walk off here and we can't lose because people are going to say, bloody hell, how on earth did you get to a tie break? And if you've lost the game, it's like we're saying, I'll tell you what it is, we're ecstatic to get to a tie break. Yeah. They must have been going, what on earth's going on here?
Aye.
We've lost 3 ends in the game. We've lost a 2, a 3, and a 3. And yes, we're 1-0 up in the tie break, but if we don't put this away, and we ended up winning 5 ends to win a game. And this is where I'll probably, in some respects, defend the sets format, because it is exciting. It does. You've got to keep going to the end. Whereas if it had been a 14-end game, which is obviously what the 2 sets of 7 is, if it had been 14 ends, we'd have walked off, and it's not a crowd spectacle at all, because we'd have probably walked off after 8 ends.
Aye. Yeah.
Game over. Done and dusted. So, such a surreal game. It's a one that I don't know if I'll ever replicate.
I mean, when it was 7-2 on comms, I says, "Oh, the lads have just dropped a single there, lost it on the measure, 7-2." I says, "Oh, start the taxi, it's get the Uber order there."
I was thinking about commentary. I was literally thinking, well, I'll be on my commentary for the rest of the day with Richie now, and it's like I'm going to talk about another defeat, and it's like I'm not thinking about the game anymore. It's like I've just gone into relaxed mode, and then all of a sudden it's like got a chance here, and
I fell for Fergie. Like I fell for Fergie. I mean, he'd getting beaten in the final of the singles the night before, and it probably replicated what Conor Milne did at Hartlepool. Can you remember when he lost the 2 finals over the 2 nights? And I honestly think when you got that second 3, I think what happened the night before, it just knocked Fergie out together. Like I think it took him out. I
love Fergie, and Darren's a top lad. And do you know what it is? Complete and utter credit to both of them. And I've got to say this: they took it like just true sportsmen. You know what I mean? They could have stormed off there. They could have, and it was like our fault in a lot of respects. We haven't put you away. And they took it. I mean, I know Derek was gutted, understandably, and I'm sure Darren was as well. But I've got to give them huge credit for what they did. And I remember after the game, I walked into the restaurant area and I was talking to Trev and Paul Barlow and a couple of others, and it was like, well, there's one thing for certain. I says, we're either going to get absolutely battered in the next game, or we'll win this, because it's just like you couldn't have been given a better second opportunity to stay in the tournament, and we did, and thankfully. Maybe it was written in the stars. I don't know.
Worked out all well in the end. And drum roll, we had 1,600 watching you in the final. You and Mr. Army.
16, was it?
1,600. Unbelievable. I mean, we brought the record the night before was 1,300, and Sunday night it's 1,600, which is absolutely gobsmacking. And to be honest, mate, if we pack it in tomorrow doing the streaming, I feel we can walk away mission accomplished, because. To get used to down at Potters, and to get 1,600 people to watch live bowls in the UK, when we started out all these years ago, the 4 years ago doing the streaming, it was very little streaming, probably 100 people watching, was just great, mate. Fantastic. I mean, fantastic credit to yourselves, fantastic credit to the way people have took to the live streaming. So it was... World Bowls have announced the first ever Hall of Fame. I'm a little bit, should have been done a few years ago. Tony Alcock being retired 23 years. Terrific to get honoured. I think he deserved it 23 years ago. I'll say the same against David Bryan, who sadly is not with us.
Yeah, it is a long thing overdue. And I always still think that, Australia got it right. It's like, the caps and everything that they do is, you get a 50th award, or you get a 100th award if you're playing for your country or whatever it is. But we don't do the recognition bit very well for me in the British Isles. But I suppose it's one of those things you say it's better late than never. And on today's show, we've got Nicola Bowe, who is the England junior manager. Well, thanks for coming on, Nicola.
Thank you very much, David.
Richie obviously heard your chat down at Leamington.
To be fair, I had to go right in that commentary box after just getting beat in the fours by Amy, down to the last end game where we were, it was like fine margins of a game, down to the last balls, to be known I had to go straight in the commentary box right afterwards. It was like, oh.
It's what you want, isn't it? It's like losing against Charlie Benson, a qualifier, and then having to go on and mark.
But I wasn't going to mention it. You do a cracking job, though, boys. I've got to be honest. My dad is very occupied when you put a full day streaming on. I don't think I'm overly impressed, but he won't move out that chair.
Well, just make sure you get him a wrongbias onesie for Christmas, Nick.
I could just see him sat in that chair with one of those on. You do a great job, boys. You do. It's excellent.
And are you looking after the full junior teams now?
So part of the sort of looking forward to the future of Bowls England, really, they invested in this review that was done, and part of the review process, they brought in somebody independent, completely out of the sport. It really opened my eyes, I've got to be honest, David, because he was asking us questions as a performance team that was in situ at the time. Why do you have an indoor bowling association? Why do you have a disability bowls part of it? Why are they all so fragmented? But then he also asked the questions about, if you've got a junior manager, why do you have to have a separate gender? And to think about the continuity going forward, I've worked with the girls since 2017, and I started in 2017 with the girls, and then 2023 I got asked to manage the under-18 team because it ticks a lot of boxes, if I'm honest. I was clearly DBS checked as a deputy head in a primary school. I'd seen a lot of the kids that are going through the system that had come into my girls team from my days of working with what Bulls England used to have an academy. So we used to have an academy weekend. So for me, Mo asked me if I'd managed the under-18 for a season, and then that led to a next season, and it was successful. And it's that combines, the under-18s combines my both worlds, if I'm honest. I'm working with young people, and I'm using my Bulls knowledge and experience at the same time. So it's pretty perfect for me. If I'm honest, Balti, that's my natural setting, is working with kids. I find kids easy to work with, can relate to them, I hope they can relate to me, and it makes my life easy. So I started off then with the under-18s, and then part of this review was to look at that. So pretty much as a performance team, we weren't made redundant, but the jobs got rebranded and re-advertised and open to all applicants. There was quite a few people in for it because it was good. It was good. It was a great opportunity. So I've put full a few interview process with John Cockcroft, Mo, asked a lot of questions about my plans for the future, and then thankfully appointed for the first year in this position. The difficulty of managing juniors, they go out your age so quickly. You've just got a bulk of players that are really good players, and then suddenly you start to lose them, within 2 or 3 years. But the beauty of managing the under-18s is I can bring them through that under-18 team, getting their first experience as international players, and then hopefully make that transition into the under-25s. And then you hope long-term future make the transition from under-25s into seniors. And that's the continuity, that's the pathway. It's as simple as that.
And that pathway is different now. I hate saying back in my day because it makes us sound even older than what I actually am and what people think I am, seeing as everybody thinks I'm 61 now. Thanks, Paul Hartley. Obviously, back in when I was junior, I was scrapping to get into the under-25 team. And I think first trial was around about, I was 15, I think. So it was obviously a lot harder. You're mixing at that age with, at that times, it was humans and all of these guys coming to the end of their under-25 career. Really to break into that. Hopefully sort of managed to get in following year. Am I right in thinking you can play under-18s and under-25s? I think once upon a time, if I remember rightly, Richie might be able to confirm this, but I'm pretty sure outdoors, you couldn't actually play for under-25s and for seniors. It was one or the other.
Great. You're good enough, aren't you?
You are, but I suppose, thinking about how the sport's progressed over the years, it's sort of probably fit for that era. It was like...
Never actually was a junior international, David. I've bowled since I was 10. I always felt I was a really good bowler. And got to the semi-finals of junior singles myself in my time, but never got a trial for a junior international. And I found that, just disappointing. Do you know what I mean? To be honest, because looking back, I was, there was 2 girls at the time from Cumbria playing junior international bowls, and I thought I was equal to them as well. Do you know what I mean? And it was just frustrating. So for me, I made my debut quite late.
Yeah.
So, my debut for England was in 2013, and that was my first year playing, but I'd actually been playing at that point. I've been playing already for over 30 years.
Thinking of that pathway now, it is a great thing, and you'll probably see, in my opinion, the ones who potentially are going to make the great seniors, because they are probably going to be under 18s and under 25s, because there is a big gap there, 7-year gap, and even from under 18 to under 25 level, it's a big old jump, massive jump to go from under 25s to seniors. So I think it's great. I think it's really good that they've got the opportunity now. I was asked to obviously just look after the northern pathway. We had a few of the juniors over at Horton Dairy Lane, and obviously then we recommended and sent through. And I quite like that, because it's nice to be able to give feedback on what you see at this level. And there was a few of the juniors who I sort of was quite honest about and just said, right, the rough diamonds and they're very young. One of the kids, young Matthew, he's still playing with junior balls, but everything there, and it's at this point now where they need to be honed and they need to be.
So I'd actually spotted Matthew at the White Rose. Do you know what I mean? So because he played at the White Rose with his junior balls. And obviously I know the family because Sophie's played in my under-18s, and I know of Alex, playing in the North as well. So I'd seen that family playing for a long time. So I saw Matthew, and I actually identified him at the White Rose that's potential for the future. Because if he's playing like that at that age and playing at that level, getting that experience, if we nurture that, it's a no-brainer. You're going to get some reward from it. And I will say we made a deliberate move this year, because previous years when we've had the junior ID days, we've based them at Leamington. That's not accessible to all families. And it's the cost to it and the full weekend, travelling from the north. We know what it's like. You've got to commit to that weekend. So it was a suggestion that we went regional, and then at least we can see what's in the regions, because potentially we could be missing players in regions just because we're not making it accessible. So that was one big move we did make, and the 8 regions that we held the ID days, the starting point at 8 places this year It was a massive take-up, it was. And, names coming forward that we've never heard of before, because you do start to get a lot of names that are sitting all the time on the edge of the teams and stuff. So, like you've said already, you widen your eyes to it, don't you? And you see some raw talent and think, wow.
You do, and there was a few fell into that category, and I just think those who are running those localized days have just got to first of all sort of identify: do you think that next step's going to be there? I mean, one of not naming any players, but a player who I did send down there got all of the natural ability in the world, but is just out there. He's he just literally, I think I put in my report, he has got all the capability to be a great player, but he's just going to be needed to be taken by the scruff of the neck and sort his concentration out, sort a few other things out, and that's the hope that when they come down to that level, that's when that happens, because that's the big thing for me that I just see, and I talked to Richie a lot about this, is there's a lot of ability out there, but there needs to be an understanding of where their position should be in the game, because there's too many of them just want to be back-end players and they don't do their apprenticeship, as we talk about. And hopefully that's what this whole thing for you, and I hope obviously when they all came down to Leamington, that's what you saw, and I hope you saw.
And that weekend was really good, David, because, Mal Evans does a fantastic job as performance coach. And on that weekend, they had so many different events going on, some just playing balls, but then skill-based activities as well, where they were getting coached to a certain skill. And then after they left that weekend, after they'd been identified at the regionals, they went away with an actual plan of what they need to work on. Brilliant. So individualised, plans like that for children. Gosh, if I'd had that as a young player, I'd have loved it. And I know after them being with us in July with those individualised plans, I had parents speaking to me at the Nationals saying they've been working on what you said. They've already been working on that backhand. They've been making sure they get down there at the club every week practicing. Because as a young kid, I used to get on my bike and go down to the bowling club at 13 and spend hours on that green on my own.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? And you learn so much about your own ability then, don't you? That you do start to know your own strengths and weaknesses. But when you've got a performance coach like Mal, who's so knowledgeable, giving you an individualised performance plan, saying these are what you're really good at and this is what you need to go and work on, that's really explicit for a lot of those kids. And I really think that's going to be a massive investment from us as well.
Absolutely. And I'll say one thing about Mal Evans. He's the reason I retired, because I'm far too old and far too fat to do exercise before a game of golf. He ain't happening.
I will say, it's the first time the under-25 boys, you might know this from your own days, Balti, they got a shock at a warm-up before a game of bowls this year in Ayr. They sort of looked at me and I said, yeah, that's what we need to do. And Mal had them running the length of the green, and we were doing some reaction stuff with some tennis balls and some quick soft deliveries. And, it's how you start the weekend off, though. It's being professional, being a team. I always talk to them about, you're a professional athlete this weekend, whether you think it or not, you're representing your country with that shirt on your back. It is a professional. And that's a culture change that I've tried to bring in as well, because I've always tried to believe in that. It's not, you know yourself, there's nothing like a prouder moment than putting that shirt on and walking out as a team.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I really want these young players to appreciate that. It doesn't just land on your lap. It doesn't.
No. And it's also, there's a bigger picture to that as well. And obviously getting the opportunity to have the parents at these events as well, and just give them the understanding they're not going to be Premier League footballs. They ain't going to be funding your lifestyle for the rest of your life. You're probably going to be in £30,000 worth of debt by the time they get to the England team, because at the end of the day, balls don't pay much. Only joking on that score. But it's just giving them the understanding that there is huge opportunity. Get them doing the right things. And I'm quite, as Richie, I'm getting to the point now where I'm quite blunt with these things, because I'm not going to stand in a room and go through certain things that you should be doing, shouldn't be doing, and literally saying the top players in the game do not go out there and run at single ball targets, and then they'll go back out in the green, and what will they do? They'll go and run at single ball targets. And I'm starting to now, talking with Foster in this area and others watching the younger ones. And it's like, we've got to be quite cutthroat now, because you just got to, I hate using the term sort the wheat from the chaff because it sounds awful, but it is that. You've got to get those players who not only have got the ability, but also listen to the players and people who've been there and done it. And the reason they're there is because of the information that they're giving you. And if you're not prepared to take that, we're all wasting our time.
Absolutely, David. And that's one massive thing I insist on from all my teams, is it's about that respect. It's mutual respect. And if your attitude isn't right, I will call it out, because you have got a responsibility to act responsible. And if that attitude isn't right, I don't like it. So I guess it's the teacher in me. I'm a big believer in the sporting attitude being right and being sporting and, respectful to your players and your team and everything else. And if anyone's not doing that, I will speak to them, a firm word with them. And touch wood, you know, it's one thing, like when we said we started this year with the under 25 boys, that's the first time I've ever worked with those boys before. And within half an hour of arriving, I got asked about alcohol. And I did go down a very firm, clear line of a 3-drink rule, and that was it. But fair play to those lads. I think they wanted someone to be very transparent with them, and fair play, they stuck with it. They respected that. It was tested. Somebody did turn around and say, but what if we don't have 3 drinks? And I said, well, then that's your international career you're gambling with. Yeah. So you make that decision. You know, you can have a great weekend drinking heavily any other time of the year, but this is a professional job we're here to do. And, you know, I like a drink myself, but I said 3-drink rule and it's simple.
Yeah.
So they did.
And to be honest with you, I'd be a complete liar. At that age, you just meet up with your mates and you know, you haven't seen them for such a long time because it's a big old country, so you don't see them on a regular basis. I've had England managers in the past, God bless his soul, Tony Orban, turned out to me one day and he was like, "Been a bit rough today, buddy." Oh, I'm feeling great. And I'd had enough. You're trying to pull the wool over people's eyes, but you do get to the point. It's the same with even going to national finals and things now. It's like some of the lads are like, say to us, "Oh, well, we're going to go for a few drinks." And it's like, what? I've got 51 weeks of the year to go. I'm here one reason and one reason only. I haven't slogged my backside off. That might be boring. And at the end of the day, yeah, we don't make millions, but I play to that level and sacrifice a lot of my life to try and win that thing. Otherwise, what's the point? And I think that's what it is. You've just got to understand where your place is within the sport.
And it's that one word, isn't it? It's the commitment. So if you're going to commit to travel like we do when you go and play and try and qualify to the nationals, then you've just managed to achieve to be part of an England team. It's not a big ask to commit to one weekend where you're sensible on the drink and you give it to your all. Fair play, they took it and they respected it. So, you know, that was I guess my first test in half an hour of arriving was about my culture, because with the girls, it's never been a question. They're a different breed, aren't they? But obviously the conversation had been discussed as wonder what she's going to do about the alcohol. So I thought, like proper teacher mode, I'll just, make it clear now and I'm going to just lay my cards straight to you lads. This is what my expectation is and that's it.
You know what you're saying there? It's like that old sort of, when you're at school, you want to leave school. When you've left school, you think back to all of those influences that you had at school and just said, you know what it is, they were fantastic in my life. And you know, the young players, I just sometimes feel they don't use what they've got at the resources, because they're seeing the same players continually forming to the highest level, qualifying to national finals every single year, but there's not many of them will drop you a message or say, what am I doing right, what am I doing wrong? And it
is, David, because we've chatted a lot at Bulls England about how can we get more coaches into the game. And you're not talking about flooding it with coaches and making loads of people, be necessarily the people that children can't relate to or young players can't relate to. You want people to become coaches that are established bowlers, because then they'll look up to them and they might contact that person and say, can you come down and have a look at my delivery? I don't feel like I'm getting consistency. Or come and watch me play this game and give me a little bit of advice afterwards. I've done that with players in my own county, watched them and said, you were dropping a lot of balls short. First ball, every time, short. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's that instant feedback, isn't it? So Mal gets a lot of people now. Once they've worked with Mal at the international level, they'll contact Mal out away from the series and ask him for advice on things. Or can you just, if I come to you, Mal, will you have a little look at what I'm doing at the minute and tell me where I'm going wrong? Because he's very good at pulling literally a delivery right down to it. Or he'll talk about how many strides you've taken off to your mat after that ball. Then you played your next one, you took 2 more strides. Why are you doing that? He'll really drill down into what's going on. So they respect that when they work for a weekend with Mal. I think they see that. But what they need to do is recognise there are people in their club. They don't have to be a qualified coach that can watch on the side and give you that advice. I was lucky I grew up with a generation of bowlers at Wickerton. We all bowled together as Wickerton players and it was just the done thing.
Yeah.
But I had plenty of experienced bowlers in that club that would have told me straight where I was going right or wrong. Like Bello, he still does it at our club. He'll turn up on a Monday night. Anyone wants a little session with him and he'll tell you, give a little bit of advice and, sort out deliveries and all sorts.
Well, that's what I say to everybody. It's a simple game that we make hard at the end of the day. As Richie said the other day, if you give it the right line, give it the right length, you're going to get close. It's as simple as that at times.
Bad theory. It's just a theory.
Just a theory is all it is.
Right, Nicola. Now, obviously, you mentioned your teaching profession's a big asset with you when you're working with young guns of the country. Bolty, believe it or not, was once shy and quiet. Sometimes he wouldn't say boo to a goose. Nowadays, he'd marinate it and stuff it in the oven and stick it on gas mark 4 for about 8 hours. I was always quiet on the green. When I led in, I was quiet. Nowadays, how do you actually coax the self-confidence from the people who are shy? Because there's obviously young people coming into the under-18s who are shy, naturally shy, and not as boisterous as a lot of people. How do you coax that out of them?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually, Richie, because for some, it's their natural setting to be quiet.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I often say that to parents when they say, oh, they're just too quiet. And some children are quiet, and that's okay. What I find at the under 18 level, and it's more of a girl thing than a boy thing, if I'm honest. The girls are often more withdrawn and quiet. We always, once we get a trial weekend, they start to play in different combinations with different players, and because they start to get more confident as the weekend goes on, playing with the different combinations, they learn from each other. So there'll be some players, that are just naturally quiet. So Sophie from Durham is naturally quiet, and he'll naturally say very little. But when she's in a pair situation and she's got to give that direct information, she now recognises she's got to do that.
Yeah.
I was quite proud of her actually this year because I watched her at the Amy Rose. She was skipping. So she was skipping in the Amy Rose this year for Durham, and I actually heard her be very vocal up the green and encouraging with her team. And I had a little moment of thinking 2 years ago, she wouldn't have done that. That stood under the cap and probably put her head down, said very little. Do you know what I mean? But she's learnt so much from the last few years of working alongside some of the lads and working outside some of the girls, because there's some girls that are really vocal as well, that she knows that actually there's such a psychology in our sport that just what you say on the green and the confidence you say it can actually etch away a little bit of the opposition as well. So when you show, I know I'm noisy on the green, I'm not quiet, I've got to be honest, I'm quite renowned for it, but I'd like to boost my team as much as possible with belief, because I think that they give more all the time if you believe in them. And somebody said to me recently when we were playing a game out down at the top club, national top club, and I looked at the head and I was trying to work it out myself, and my lead that was playing with me in the pair, she turned around and she went, you can draw that. And that person telling you that is massive, because you think, yeah, I can actually, and you go off and give it your best go, whatever. Might not go right, but it does make a difference.
Yeah.
The girls are getting better at being more vocal on the green by playing with the boys. It's pretty simple, it is. And I will say that for some of them, they've had to come out of the comfort zone to do that, but when they become an international bowler and they start to play the different home nations, you realise that's how everybody plays, and they are more vocal, and there is a lot of noise, and it can get a bit rowdy, especially when you're playing away from England against anybody else, quite honestly. So you've got to learn to give a little bit back as well, but it's definitely getting better.
Do you think body language? I always say you look at the body language. Somebody's playing bad, I think it gives. We've got them. If your head goes up your rear guard and your head I've missed that and you're chucking your cloth, got them.
Got them. So we do a team talk before every game. Night before we start a series, I do a big speech with the team, and Mal backs me up with some comments as well. And I talk a lot about psychology of the game, because I think you can win a game easily by the psychology. One massive thing we talk about is body language.
Yeah.
That if the game's going wrong, you've still got a lot to give to that team. So you're still encouraging, you're still being positive on the rink, and you don't show it. Because you're right, Richie, somebody right away thinks, got him. I've done it myself, playing someone thinking, oh, they're rattled. Because you can see by the body language. But we always talk to them about, if you play your ball, if it's not a great ball, 3 steps, it's gone. You've got to forget it, and you go on to the next one that you're going to deliver and think about it.
I mean, you probably like me. I'm obviously older, so I've played with old fellas who sort of like, you're not up, you're wise, you're heavy, man, you're rubby, and so nowadays that's just you still see it, but at a club level, but international level, I don't think you see it. I think it'd be you'd probably jump on the green and say, "Oh, young man, young lady, you just get a grip, you get a grip."
But you'll say to them, every ball's got a purpose at the end of the day, and nobody ever means to play a bad ball. That's the point. But they'll happen, because it's the laws of average. We're all likely to play one at some time. But we always talk about that. You talk it up the game and say, oh, that's a good ball back there. That's going to have a use. You know what I mean? It's got a job to do. Even a short ball can have a job to do. Yeah. So we always try and give that positivity, but not display any negativity in our body language or anything else.
I mean, I think me and Davey both think, the role of a team manager, I definitely think it's just like a shoulder, somebody to be there to sort of like be a comfort blanket, somebody to go to and have a bit of a chat.
Yeah, I've always talked to them about that, saying, because, with the under 18s, they play different combinations. And, this year the under 25s changed to a very similar format where it was 4 games in a day. That's hard. That's a long day for young bowlers mentally, never mind the physical side to it. So I always talk to them about, you will dip at some point in the day. Your concentration can't be held for 8 hours at that level. Pop off the green. I'm on the end of the rink, because I'm a big believer in being a manager that's moving all the time at the end of the rink. I'm sure the team will tell you I probably walk about 16,000 steps during the day when it's a weekday like that. And I play a lot of balls mentally myself, I've got to be honest. But I'm watching all the time every head that's going on, because they can obviously step off for advice. But I've seen me pull a player off before and just put an arm around them and say, just let it go. You're getting rattled, you're getting wound up. Calm yourself. Get yourself on that green, reset, think about what you're doing. And that's all it needs sometimes. I know when Catherine was playing with me in the 25s, Catherine Reddoll, She often used to appear at the side of the green and have a bit of a moan about what was going on the rink, and then it just needed me to say, right, you've got rid of it now, so get back on that green and play your balls. And it's as simple as that, isn't it?
Yeah.
But with younger ones, little things can really agitate them. So you do have to say it's fine, let it go. You don't need to let it spoil your game. You're playing well. Give them that belief.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I'm a big believer as well. I tend to say this obviously for county games, and sometimes think can it be taken in a negative way, or I'd like to think it's taken in a positive way, because I always say some of us are going to have bad games. We're only humans. The green may not suit, your balls may not suit, something might not suit. You might have had an argument in the house before you've left the house. Something is going to happen which is going to cause you to have a bad game. It can be a really lonely place when you're not playing well, because you feel like every eye's on you and you feel like you're letting the team down. But I just try to instill that thing of, even if you're getting beat, I know it's the hardest thing in the world to think, why am I shouting at others and encouraging others when I'm spraying them here, there and everywhere? But that's what makes a team. A team is made from 24, 16, whatever number of players that is, that basically understands that we are all going to have bad days, and looking over your shoulder and looking as if you're talking about that person having a bad game does nothing but breed negativity and bad morale through the team. So it's about togetherness.
It is, David. And what I've tried to do this year is I've never named my team as a team of 12. I've always called them squads, because I've been named as a reserve for England before, and it's pretty disheartening. And then I've spent my whole series turning a scoreboard. I just found it really, really mentally affecting, actually. So, and I pulled myself out of that England setup. I knew I wasn't good enough, quite honestly, and I wasn't enjoying playing for balls for England. So when I made this decision to go this route with my career, big thing in my mind was this is junior balls, and junior sport can affect futures for some children. So I'm a big believer that I never say that's the reserves in the team. I name a squad nowadays and say, and you've all got a part to play in that, because you will all play at some point, and you will all be a part of that team, whether you're standing on the end of the rink shouting and cheering and grab a cup of tea or coffee or water for people, or getting a cloth dry or whatever, or going on that green and being it. We are a unit and we play together and we support each other.
Absolutely.
So I always talk to them about that, and that was one thing I did with the under-25s this year. So everybody in the under-18 series, the under-25 series, they've all played right through. They've all played games. Nobody's not played, because I just think you're part of that squad. And sometimes when you're picking a team to start your starting combinations, it's fine margins that you're separating players from. You know, they're there and they've committed to it and they've got a right to play. So I am a big believer in that, in how I approach things in my culture, that it's a squad and we've all got a part. But I do talk about when I've starting combinations and say, right, these are the starting combinations, but you'll have a job to do later today when people are starting to get tired, so I need you to know that. But then I do like to say to them, but I want you to be as noisy as possible on the end of these rinks, and I want to make sure you're available, whether you're passing sweets out or getting things for everyone, because you're part of this team. Don't disappear. You are part of this team.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Harry Duffield did a brilliant job in the under-25 series. You know, he'd had a bit of a struggle in one of the games, and we sat him out and rested him, and he were playing against, I think it was Ireland, and his job, we spoke to him, Mal and I, and said, Harry, you need to be vocal now, because we've got to win this game to get us in a good position against Scotland for the last session. We need you as vocal as possible on the side of that green and cheering that team on. He was brilliant. He did a great job. Never left the team. And that, to me, is a real show of a character of a player as well. He knew he had to sit out. He knew he was struggling, but he didn't have to come back on better than the last session, because he still was part of that team.
And that is a big sort of character requisite for, in my opinion. I've always said those players who will progress and win things or make international teams are potentially the ones who do take the knocks, because it's those who take the knocks and learn from them and say, I'm not going to allow that to happen again. And one of my biggest things through every single international series, from being a junior to present day, I literally sort of set myself a task on every single series to say I would hate to be dropped for that last third game. And it's just a mental thing for me. And it's like, again, I don't think I'm infallible. I don't think I'm never going to be dropped out of the team. And I think you need to give yourself that little bit of adrenaline pressure to get the best out of yourself as well. And it's learning over the years how to manage that adrenaline to the right level, so that you're not going too far over the top and then, you know, having bad games because you're too hyped up, or being too low and trying to contain yourself yourself, because then you probably just play those negative average balls that you'll play in a series. So that's another big thing for me for juniors, is really understanding that it's great, it's fantastic to go and get a 6 on an end and everybody jumping all over and hugging each other and rolling about the green. But then if you go and drop a 4 the next end, you've only scored 2 over 2 ends in the
and
big
that's
scheme.
the time it's more than likely it's going to happen as well. Do you know what I mean? Because adrenaline's high, emotions aren't in control, and it's like when you score a goal in football, isn't it? The chances of you like scoring against you is high. Do you know what I mean? Because you lower your guard, as it were. But that's something I always call it kamikaze balls when that happens, because it's like, what are we doing? Stop, think. That is one thing that I think getting to that international level, you really makes you think about percentage balls, and you're getting cutting down counts, and I don't need to chase a shot, I'm just going to get a second and a third in, and then they're going to score 1. That's fine, but it ain't going to be a big count. Game management, isn't it? And understanding that.
If only we had a book.
What book could that be, Rich?
I don't know. Is it in the pound box in W.H. Smith's?
I'll tell you, one of these days that book's coming out and it's going to be a bestseller. I'm telling you.
Right.
Dave, I'll tell you, Bolt's game management book will come out one day and it will fly.
It closes a free £10 note. Yeah, right. And now it's time to clear your vocal cords, and here's that commentary clip from our trip to Carlisle.
Oh, he's close. Oh, he's close.
He's got a hang on now.
Oh, yeah, Gina G.
Doesn't want to fall on the
Gina G. Gina G. Ooh, just a little bit. Ooh, a little bit more. Ooh, just a little bit. This is what I'm looking for.
It's like Vic and Bob.
How many people were joining in? Come on, folks.
Pub karaoke singer. We take requests.
Come on, how many?
Just a little bit, a little bit more.
500 people doing Gina G impressions.
Look at them numbers dwindling.
There's people scalded and spat the coffees out of us.
What's the scores on the doors, George Dawes? It's a 4 and a 2 after 5. As the crow flies.
I'm crying. Got me crying already. Oh, what's this? Oh, dear, what's going on here? Oh, I'm getting
thank you, Pat.
midget gems off Michael Keenan. You're a star, mate. Hold on, you want £6?
You're interrupting our karaoke here, Michael. We were just about to break into Saturday Night by Wakefield.
I've took my glasses off, they're steamed up. Dear me.
Back on the balls.
And now we return to our chat with Nicola Bowe.
It has become a much more attacking game now. It has. Everybody's wanting to be running from second ball to try and do this, that and the other. You see a lot of the younger bowlers trying to adapt these things, but then they wonder why they're dropping 3s and 4s, because they don't just go with the first ball and then think, right, I've missed it? Do I need to do something different now? No, they go again. And I think there's a peer pressure type thing to think that people's looking on the sidelines saying, well, he's run with his first ball and he's going to have to run with his next one and run with his next one. And they end up dropping 3s and 4s and losing games. And this is the thing that, for me, they need to be watching, those bowlers who've gone through that apprenticeship time and understand why there's a batch of players, especially in this country, who just year after year after year, they're in the latter stages of nationals on a regular basis.
Balls, isn't it? It's intelligent balls. That's what it comes down to, stand in the game and knowing, right, and I've said it playing myself, I'm not chasing the shot because I'm going to struggle to get the shot, but I don't want to drop more than 1. So I'll put a close second in and I'll cover the back in case they decide to move it. It's game management. It comes down to it time and time again of understanding the game, because it is like a game of chess. It's such a strategic, tactical game. You've got to be looking ahead all the time at what's going to come next. And you're right, some of the younger players will attack. I think that's because what they see, dare I say, sometimes now on TV and streamed. So they think, I can do that. I've seen them do it. I can do that. And You know, you've got to be a pretty skillful bowler to do that nine and get such a lot of success. But you know, sometimes we have had players in the juniors that we've worked with that we've had to rein in because they want to attack all the time. Try and get them to play in that situation with a more experienced player to try and tame them. Or this year at the under-25s, I took mentors for the first time. I didn't take selectors or scouts. That was one thing I wanted to do, was take player mentors. So Tom McGuinness came and Amy Farrow. I did talk to them about the remit that, you know, if they start attacking too much, I want you to stop them attacking. Amy was brilliant at that. She was pulling off any players that she felt was running at it that don't need to and say, come here. And she's a teacher, she's a PE teacher, so she was doing the same thing. Think about what's the worst that could happen here. What is the worst scenario? What could you do to stop that? That's somebody to press the pause for you, to make you think about it rather than go gun-ho and just go for that shot. It is its experience. It comes down to experience. It does.
Totally agree, and it's like I say, it's great that that's happening because it is a big thing for me. I'd love to, like I say, you know, it's for the future of England as much as anything else. And obviously, there seems to be very similar pathways happening in each of the countries now. So it's, you know, it seems to be a mirrored effect across the British Isles. Before I touch on the Cumbria question, Rich, have you got any other questions that you wanted to?
This one will probably fold into two. Well, this two will fold into one. Does that make sense? Anyway, is the hardest part of the job telling somebody you're not in the team, and I'm going to intertwine with the roles of substitutes during a game? I'm not a fan of it. I think Davies, he's a bit like that about it. I think if you drag somebody off during a game, the mental effect of it, I think it's got a negative side.
I never shy away from that conversation, Richie. If somebody is going to rest, as I call it, in the next game, then they'll rest, and I'll explain to them why they're resting.
Yeah.
You know, like I rested Gemma on the first game on the Sunday of the under-25 series. We had 2 sessions to go. We were in a really good position, but Gemma was leading for Yaz, and they know each other inside out. Her game had just started to teeter off a little bit. So I spoke to her and said, you are going to rest, but your job when you come back on is to come on against Scotland and be stronger, consistent and fresh. The job you're going to do. Under-18s this year, I rotated Louis Hodges and Matthew Murphy because they were my 2 youngest players. And I said, you boys are going to keep swapping in because every time you come in, you're going to be fresh and hungry for it. And that means that, you know, I'm going to keep you energised and stuff. So I'm quite happy to have those conversations to almost explain what their job is to do. I know Sabrina Wiegman does that in football. She talks to players and explains to them, your job when you come on is going to be to do this. So that makes people understand that there is a reason why you're doing it. I think one of the hardest things, and this is probably the hardest part of my job, is when we hold an assessment day and actually people aren't successful. When you're feeding, and I always offer feedback at that now because I think that's so important. If people have come to an assessment day, feel like they've had a decent game and want feedback, and I will always give feedback, and I do it written. I do a written feedback form for them. I'll go through where they went well, where the, you know, in the reason really why they weren't selected, and sometimes it's fine margins. It's about ineffective balls that actually in your scoring you had a lot of 0 balls. So a ball that was completely ineffective compared to somebody that was playing a similar position, their balls were counting. So I always try and do that, but that's hard because especially under 18 boys, you're picking 7 boys out of a mass of boys that have real talent. So it's like, God, it's so challenging because I'd love to take 24 of you and play you, because I could take 24 under 18 boys. But sometimes it's about talking about them, you know, your time's going to come. Your time will come. And actually go away and work on this. Think about this. And that'll make a difference next year, because you will be back next year and you've got a chance. So that's hard when it is real fine margins of a reason why you're not selecting them. I'm a big believer in feedback because I'd want to know why I'm not selected. So, you know, if I've expected them to come and travel and take part in that, I've always offered a feedback. This year, the first one, I'd asked somebody asked for feedback and they'd been selected. Now that told me a lot about that player, that they knew they weren't the finished article. So yeah, they'd been selected, but they know, I think, or have heard whatever about how I was prepared to give feedback. He wanted to know what he could still make better. And that really resonated with me about that person, because I think that's impressive. And it shows a real maturity in a young player that they know they've got to work on things.
That just touches, Nicola, on what I said earlier on as well. Potentially, when decisions come up, if he progresses and decisions come up further down the line, that puts him in a great position compared to others, because those are the players who you need in your team, the ones who are prepared to take the kickbacks and not sulk and chuck the toys out the pram. would actually go away and say, I'm going to work at this and get it right.
Want to work at it, and I will say to you, there's nothing more pleasing than when you pick a team in May, June, and then they get to nationals and do it absolutely amazingly well. You do get a lot of pride from seeing them achieve things. I'm so proud that two of my under-18 players previously this year, Charlie won the under-25 singles this year, Rihanna won the champions. They were playing in a rink at under-18s 2 years ago. So players that are going on and making that own individual progress is massive. The reserves though, I've got to be honest, because the indoor plays it, don't they, with reserves where you can swap in and things.
Yeah.
I will say I've had times when I'd want it because I know someone's having a bit of a mare, and no matter what I've said to them and talked to them about it, but this is where my teacher hat comes on. I think it could be soul destroying for a young player, because if I had to pull them off, they know that they're not being pulled off because I'm resting them to come fresh tomorrow. I'm pulling them off because they're having a mare, and that could affect potentially their future. But I don't mind telling you this because I have talked to her about it. Nicole Rogers really struggled in her debut year at under-25s previous to me being a manager, and I got that fed back to me that she'd had a nightmare debut series and actually played one game and then was dropped. And it was questionable whether I wanted to look at it again in the future. Imagine that. Imagine if I'd not given her that chance, and look at how far and much she's achieved now. I'm not saying that's because of me. That's her own bowling.
Yeah. The right decision. She's rubbish.
Sometimes people can make a fleeting decision on one game, and gosh, we can all have a nightmare, do you know what I mean? Especially making that debut, which is massive. I am a big believer that everyone can have a bad game. If you're pushing me to put an answer on that, I don't want substitutions at the moment. I'm quite happy having a squad that I can rotate and move instead of the game.
I think from what you said earlier on, you've still got a job to do to motivate the team and keep that team ticking over, and obviously then probably keep that substitute sort of in the right frame of mind, and because they've stepped onto the green and they're having to adapt to that situation. Then you've got somebody who's walked off the green who's feeling really demoralised and is going to go and probably sit in a corner, and you're not going to potentially have that opportunity to say, I need you out there and I need you shouting for the team, because they're probably going to turn around and see and stick that right up your backside.
He's hard enough for the series. The way the junior series are now, Balti, it's really hard because you get 20 minutes in between games.
Yeah.
So you've got to submit your team selection 30 minutes before the end of session. So you're putting your actual selections in and they've not finished. And then in that 20-minute gap, you've got to have a chat with somebody to explain that they're not going to play this next session and this is why. And then you're going to chat to that next person and say, you're coming on and playing. And in amongst it, they're trying to get drinks, they're trying to get food, they're trying to nip to the toilet. It's full on. So there have been times that, I had to speak to them either at night time and say, can I talk to you now about why I moved you off in that game? Because I didn't get a chance during the day-to-day. The full-on job it is, but it's one I love. So that's why I've given a bit back to the game, because it's a game I love. So
Absolutely. Just a fleeting question really about Cumbria. I mean, I probably equated Cumbria back in my under-25 days to the Devons in the Kents of today, because obviously you had your Stewies, you had your Farishes, you had John Bells, Ronnie Gasses, all of these players who were just, the Denny teams and the county teams and the national setups. Everything was absolutely phenomenal, and you just had this conveyor belt of young players, young top players coming through. And I'm not saying Cumbria hasn't got them now, because you've got still young players there, but I wouldn't say you've got that conveyor belt effect of what you had back then. And it was just that question of, is it just a generational thing, or do you think something went missing somewhere along the line in Cumbria, or is it?
It's something I've always thought about, David, I'll be honest, because I did manage the Amy Rose team at one point for Cumbria, and there was a real crop of young players there. And when I got the England job, I had to say, no, I wasn't managing that Amy Rose team anymore, and make that step. And then it just went. The team went. Nobody stepped up to make that next step to manage that team. And then, I look at those players, and out of those players, like Rachel and Vicky Foster's gone on and still carried on playing, and Molly Haney debuted this year in the England team. But even my own niece doesn't play as much now. She was a young player at the time playing in that team. A lot of them have just stopped playing. For girls, I'd say it's tricky. Because if, like, I bowled from 10, I was a family of 4, we played mixed fours on a weekend, we all played bowls. That's just what we did as a family. And like you said, I grew up in that crop. So, I played with the Baxters, I played with Stevie. Stevie's like my older big brother. All those players, we played together, we played short mark. Everything was round bowls. But I don't think it's been tapped into enough to get the next generation. It was assumed that they'd just follow. So there hasn't been great opportunities in schools. Some clubs do it, they do tap into schools. They get some young players, But what I find with the school programme, because I do it as an after-school club with my school, I'd take the ball and be stupid not to, wouldn't I? Unless they've got a family member that also gets into that game, or grandparent or family member, whatever, they're not going to go down to the club. And that's the difficulty, I think, is that generation younger than me is that middle bit, not the young ones. It's their parents who see it as a sport. And it's about that image change, isn't it? So my parents were playing balls when they were in their 30s. And then they're with there when we played, we were, starting playing as soon as we were old enough to get a ball in our hand, we were playing. But if I look at Wickerton Club now, there's not many in their 30s that are playing balls. You've got new starters that might be a few kids that are playing young. And then we've got my generation in our 40s, 50s, older generation. So there's been a gap. There's a gap of a generation that got lost somewhere. And that's just such a shame, because you're right. Cumbria young bowlers, we won the Erie Rose 3 times as girls. The boys did brilliantly. Denny Cup was just unbelievable with them.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the likes of, just bringing Devon as an example, and you're hitting your Jamie Walkers, your Sam Tolshards, your Jamie Chesneys, your Lou Rideouts. You just reel the names off of players who were international Commonwealth Games players. And obviously, back in your day, when I was younger, you'd come and play Cumbria, and it was your Trevor Taylors, your Gavin Taylors, your John Bells, your Ronnie Gassers, your Stewie Aries. It was just relentless. It was player after player after player, and it was like
all the time.
When Richie will remember when we used to pick any teams at Sunderland, it was like you knew you were going to hit Cumbria, and if you got past Cumbria, you were going to have a really good chance of actually getting to latter stages. But very rarely we got past that team because they were phenomenal.
I do think that some of the young players didn't get the opportunities as much at one point, so I don't think they got the chance to play Johns, Middleton when they should have been going into those teams. Those teams should have been leading that Johns team. Totally. Get them leading, get them into county balls, get the experience, and get them brought into that bug. And they weren't brought through like that, because they were still unfortunately selecting, without sounding too awful, 80-year-olds that were leading, that were struggling on a heavy green. And you're missing a massive opportunity here to bring these young ones through, and then they lose interest. I will say, going back to Devon, I think Devon's in that bit at the moment.
Yes. They've
suddenly got a massive gap in their sort of county where there are those young players coming through. It must be a first time there's not been an under-25 boy from Devon in the team.
And that's where I was probably going to say you've gone from your Cumbrias to your Devons, and it's probably you're looking at the Kent area now. Kent seem to be just rolling in titles left, right, and centre.
I think Gloucester's got some really strong young players in there now. They're doing a lot of work. And that's why, Bowls England, a little bit tagline now for you. But Bowls England have brought in a new award this year for the awards night, which is actually about junior development. So which county or club are doing a lot for junior development? And that's an award now at the awards night, because we've got to look at continuity for the future. And Absolutely. It won't be what you're doing now as a programme. What's your plans for the future to maintain that? Because there's pockets right around this country that's doing some brilliant stuff. Like Dorset Academy is excellent. Got some really good players coming out of Dorset that, Millie Tuck came from that route and has done really well. So, and, I had a girl, Daria Rampelt, came from there in my under-18s this year. And they get a good breeding at Dorset. They get a really good development programme. And then you're right, Kent do it. I think Gloucestershire's got a good, strong pedigree there. I think Hertfordshire's got a strong pedigree as well. There's pockets around the country, but I do almost feel that we all go through waves of getting that through, and in backfilling, they're going to disappear, aren't they? I think some of those, the younger generation, their own children haven't gone into that game. So I know Stephen's son hasn't, I look at Doc, he's got 3 kids, none of them have gone into the game. And for whatever reason, then that isn't that natural continuity, is it, in the cycle?
Absolutely, yeah. And I got to see Chumley for the first time in ages, Richie Chandler, on the weekend, and he's still the big cuddly bear he's always been.
He'll never change.
Well, Nicola, it's been a great chat. I've really, I love talking about the junior side of the game. I definitely, from my point, want to see it progress. You want to be seeing a lot of these youngsters now starting to press what is a sort of quite a solid generation of bowlers. It was still in that mid-40s, 50s range, but still doing it. And you want those youngsters to be pushing them now, because I do have conversations with parents, and they're saying, is it not time for the youngsters to be taking some of these places in the England team? And you've got to be honest with them and turn around and say, well, where do they fit in? Where's the pedigree? What are they doing to actually justify the position in the England team? And everyone who's in that England indoor team that I'm part of, you look across the rinks and it's like, wow, wow. It's like
the outdoor, senior series this year, gold medals, men and women. How do you break into that team? The women have made more progress. They have into that women's team, definitely. But if I look at that men's team, I don't know how you break into it. And that is something we've looked at as well at Bowls England, and how can we bridge that gap? Tom Holmes has just gone out of age at under 25s last year. You don't want to lose him as potential for the future being in that senior team. So it's what do we do about that?
Well, he certainly hasn't. He certainly hasn't done his cause too badly, winning the national singles and qualifying for quarters this year. So he's definitely banging the door down like nothing else at the minute.
Definitely. So Milligan, I know you played Lloyd this weekend.
Class kid as well. I really like Lloyd.
Such a good attitude. He's willing to learn. He's desperate to do his very best. He's always asking, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? He's got great potential for the future.
I've got masses of time for Lloyd. I've played him quite a few times now, and he's a great kid, and I think he's got a great future. And for me, we were just talking about the other day, and you still look at Lloyd and you watch him playing a game, and you think there's still a few things you just need to get right there, but the bulk of his game is top class. Like, so he's
Jenna winning the national singles this year, 21. There is some talent out there.
Absolutely.
Like a mother of many at the moment, David. I'm very proud.
That's great, and long may it continue, Nicola. You're doing a great job. I really have thoroughly enjoyed it, the chat that we've had, and I appreciate you coming on.
You both anyway.
Right, thanks, Nicola. Thank you. Right.
Good stuff. Thanks very much. Thanks again, Nicola.
Cheers, Nicola.
Right, take care. Cheers, guys.
Ta-da. Bye. Right, mate, another one over and done with. A great interview with Nicola Bowe. Like I say, I just love her enthusiasm. Absolutely. If she was knocking around when we were playing juniors, I think more people would have took the game up. The enthusiasm was just great, mate.
Absolutely, I agree. It was a really, really good chat, and it's funny, because you can have all your top bowlers on, you can have the top players in the games and things like that, and it's some of the best podcasts we've had have probably not been the recognised bowlers or the top bowlers in the sport. It's those people who give and have got the passion for the sport, and this is why we always say if there's people out there, who would like to come on and talk about the things that they do, or they've got a position in the sport that they feel is they want to talk about, then just give us a shout. We're always looking for guests, and we're always looking for different things to talk about. So yeah, she was brilliant. And
just before we go up, just got a surprise guest coming on. Good evening, Charlie Benz, calling north of Scotland. Come in, Charlie. I'm only kidding, mate. You played him in the PV on Sunday morning, and I don't think that smile would have left his face. I don't think it'll ever leave his face, mate, when he drew that shot with his final ball to beat you.
Do you know something? Honestly, it's like you didn't want to go out of a competition anytime. I walked off thinking, you know what it is, I haven't played badly at all. He's played some great balls. But if I was going to lose to anybody, he would be top. He'd be right up there. He's such a top bloke in character. And we talked about this the other day in commentary. It's like he epitomises what we always talk about characters in the game. He walks in a room, he's small stature, he just lights a room up, and he's just class. And, it's so funny because you have a conversation with him and you haven't got a clue what he's saying for 80% of the time. But the 20% of the time you just said, you know what it is, I could talk to you all day, Charlie. And he's just that type of character, and I love him to bits. And I give him a hug at the end of the game. It's quite easy to walk away and be in a huff and I've been beaten. But sometimes you just got to say, hey, you've been beaten on the day. He had the big balls when he needed to, and I give him a hug. And he was class, and he played well the next two games. He ran Colin Banks close as well. So all credit to the bloke.
Yeah, he's absolute legend, Charlie. And before we go, mate, you did try out a new ball at Carlisle.
I did,
Drake's Pride, size 4. What was special about it?
Zero bias. I'm going to use 4 of them in the next qualifier.
Yeah, I mean, we have got a video which I will upload sometime in the near future of Davey trying to play with zero bias ball. Also looking to see if he's got the bias on the right side. That's all I'm saying. People say anybody can play with straight balls, but
very hard.
The ball actually went up straight and was drifting out.
Well, you know something? That's a really good point. And when you've just said that there, straighter balls, I wonder how much that is affected by, there's obviously a very, very slight slope on it because you watched it go up 2-3 times and it drifted in one direction, which makes you think that there's obviously a little bit of a slope there. And, maybe just sometimes says that sometimes these tighter bias bowlers are maybe fighting against gravity as well. So
yeah, well, I think the gravity on ring 1 was because we used to set up on that ring, didn't we? So obviously the weight of us has probably dragged it out. Anyway, folks, we hope you enjoyed it. As always, many thanks for your support, and we will be back very soon. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well.
Thank you for listening and hope you've enjoyed the show.
This has been a Dodgy production.